To interact with other viewers on Twitter, use the hashtag MSUPres14. To suggest a question for the candidates, comment on the live stream feed and we will ask a selection of viewer questions at the end of the debate. So we're going to start with opening statements and then move on to questions. Opening statements will be 30 seconds each, and we'll start with Ms. Ali and move down the table.
Hi everyone, my name is Isra Ali. I'm the current MSU Diversity Services Director and also the co-chair of the President's Advisory Committee for Building an Inclusive Community. That's back big for short. I'm also a fourth year honors life sciences student here.
Hello, my name is Jacob Broadcat. I'd first off just like to thank the Silhouette for allowing us to have this opportunity. It's not very often that we get to sit down and discuss issues relevant to students. So I'm happy we have the chance to sit down, come together and discuss platforms and issues.
Hi, my name is Jess Russell. I wanted to, like Jacob, thank the Silhouette for having us and also thank those watching at home for taking the time to make an educated decision on your vote. Congratulations on that.
Hi everybody, my name is Teddy Saul. I'm also running for MSU President, and like these guys, I want to thank the SIL because I'm pretty sure this is the peak of my celebrity career. I am on TV, there will probably be a newspaper article about it, and I was on the radio earlier, so thank you for listening. Looking forward to the conversation.
All right, hello everybody. I'm Jason Wolowitz, and I am also running for MSU President. Yes, this is a fantastic opportunity for all of us. Thank you very much. And I'm very much looking forward to asking some questions to the candidates and also being asked some questions as well. So let's enjoy ourselves and give the MAC community some info. And good luck to everyone, guys.
Okay, so we're now going to move on to questions. For the first two questions, each of you will be allowed to respond. The other questions will then be directed specifically at one or more candidates. So the first question for all of you, could you please name one part of your platform or one issue that your platform discusses that you think is not being adequately addressed by the platforms of other candidates? You're allowed 1 minute, and then we'll do rebuttals. So we'll start with Jason Wolowitz and move down the table.
Sure thing. All right, so I'm going to go with the first point on my platform, and that's providing a quick and affordable lunch option. As who have been following our team or just simply gone to class every day, you might have noticed lines are very, very long everywhere on campus for food. And so let's give ourselves another option. 1280 has space. Management is for the idea. Let's give ourselves a quick and affordable option using the space we already have. And I'd say just let's do it.
I would say what my platform addresses that hasn't been touched on by the other platforms is the cash reserves that we have right now in the MSU, valued at over $4 million. I have a plan in place, a conservative one at that, to freeze the fee for now so we can reevaluate the way we're spending student money. And then from there, hopefully we're moving forward in a wonderful direction.
I think the main point that I've been focusing on that I haven't seen as much, at least specifically in the platforms of the other candidates, has been mental health. For me, this has been a really personal issue as I personally struggle with anxiety and depression and have used the SIL's, sorry, not the SIL, I'm here at the SIL, used Student Wellness services for the past at least 3 years, a little bit more like 4. And I believe we need to be talking about actual implementable options to help students on a direct basis, which has happened in the past with Peer Support Line, which came through the presidential elections 2 years ago. And I believe we need to be talking more about not just community and not just ways to help each other cope and not feel alone. We need to be giving students direct ways of getting help and also professional help. I feel like we as students, we've done enough. In terms of peer support, we have 3 different services of peer support. I think we need to put it back on the university.
So the one aspect of my platform that definitely sets it aside from everyone else's is academics, and in particular my freedom credit point, which would allow a student to take an elective class outside of their major or area of specialization and would get treated as pass-fail. The reason why I wanted to include this in there is because faculty and administration, specifically like our AVP teaching and learning and so on, want to hear from students. They want to know how we can innovate the way that we're learning. And if it's possible to introduce ways for cross-faculty and interdisciplinary learning, they need to hear that from students, because it's students who need to champion ideas to make sure that we have like a variety of course learning options. So it would definitely be the Freedom Credit Point and academics that set my platform aside from everyone else's.
I think one distinguishing platform point of mine is to actually revisit ancillary fees and assess the value that students are getting from them. So, for instance, we have about every student, if we're talking about a population of 20,000 plus students, every student pays around $250 to the Athletics and Recreation Center. So that's about $4.5 million, and we need to just go back and see how the value is being assessed and go forward from there and act accordingly. So that's one of my platform points that distinguishes.
Okay, so now you're each going to have a 30-second rebuttal to argue that certain things were actually in your platform, or to explain why you chose to not put them in your platform. If you want to use your rebuttal, you can, but if you don't want to speak at this time, you can just say pass. So Ms. Rezel, we'll start with you and we'll go around.
One thing I'd like to address is Jacob speaking about academics. I think what's important to mention, and this was talked about at the State of the Union the other day, is that the purpose of the MSU is to draw into a true society all students of McMaster. I think society and in terms of supporting students on student life is an important need of the MSU. And I think also feasibility in terms of academic concerns is another issue. I want to support you in terms of actual ways to support you in your academics rather than specifically academic concerns.
So something that I would like to discuss is mental health, and in particular what the MSU is doing for it. Something that's interesting is that despite the fact that certain things may not appear in a candidate's platform, that doesn't mean that you're not consciously aware of the efforts that are currently being put forward by particular organizations and campus departments and groups. So in particular, the MSU is currently working on a mental health policy that would address things like more improved frontline care and fixing the fragmented services that are currently available at the university.
Jacob, I have to cut you off there. Thanks. Isra?
Regarding which point specifically?
This is just a response to say that something was in your platform, or if you want to explain why you chose to not put something in your platform that the other candidates discussed.
Yes, I tried to kind of encompass as many different student voices as possible, and I want to ensure that, for example, I have creating spaces for equity, engagement, enhancement for everyone within each of the different pillars. There is kind of a platform point that would relate to at least a specific population of the university or the student population. So just because, as I can allude to also Jacob Brodka's point about just because it's not part of my platform, but it doesn't mean I wouldn't not focus on it.
Okay, and we'll move down to Jason.
Perfect. All right, so just in response to Jacob Brodka, I do believe that two of my points, in fact, are about education, ensuring a variety of study environments, which I won't go into at this point, I'll bring up later, but also what I will go into is increasing experiential education options, and I do have experience with working groups within the humanities, and am well aware of other faculties putting efforts into this process, so let's get the discussion together and streamline ideas so that we can see similarities.
Thank you. I would say I also have elements of mental health reflecting through my community piece. And so all of my platform points come down to community and how do we draw students in a way that's easy and is exciting for them. And I think that in and of itself is a proactive approach to mental health. And so I'm going to settle on that one.
Okay, so now for this second topic, please pick one platform point of another candidate that you think is not feasible or not necessary or just generally problematic. You can have 1 minute. If one of your platform points is attacked, you'll immediately have a 30-second response, and then we'll move around the table. So, Jacob, we're going to start with you.
I'm going to jump to Ms. Russell's shuttle to art crawl platform point. I just feel like it's a redundant service simply because the HSR easily takes students down to where art crawl is located, and it's a service that they're already paying for with their bus pass. So I'm curious as to why we need a redundant shuttle to bring students down to that location.
Absolutely. So some of the people I've talked to, a part of bringing the shuttle into that is one, to educate students on the fact that we have an HSR, and also as an excuse to also promote these events that are happening in our community, also on campus. I'd like to also expand that into places where we can't actually have as quite as easy bus service as we can to Art Crawl, and extend that into other community events such as concerts or busker fests, etc., that happen elsewhere on campus. But thanks for that question, Jacob.
Okay, so Isra?
Sorry, my mind just went somewhere else. What was the question again?
You can pick one
Yes,
platform point
sorry.
of another candidate.
Okay, I'm very sorry about this. So one of the points I was actually questioning further about is Brodka's point about participatory budget. Sorry, Mr. Brodka, about participatory budget and how will this actually take place if we currently have low engagement already with presidential elections. How would we have enough students participating in the budgeting process when we have them participate, I guess, in kind of like the Student Life Enhancement Fund and whatnot?
Thanks for that question, Isra. Student engagement is the exact thing that this platform point is trying to address. So right now it is possible to put together proposals to fund some type of initiative or project with this pool of money, except there isn't student engagement. So by applying this model of allowing students to be involved in the decision-making process from start to finish, I think it adds an element of attractiveness that would ultimately engage students, increase the number of student submissions, and get them excited about the pool of money again.
Okay, Jason, we'll go down to you.
All right, well, I'm going to go on Jacob's point on affordable tutoring credit, only because I understand it's modeled after the MES and other faculty societies, but I did some logistical homework on it, and if we go with 5,500 level 1 students, with only 10% of them actually using the service at 1 hour a week for 28 weeks at $10, you're looking at $154,000. That alone, increase that to 2 hours a week for 28 weeks, or excuse me, for level 2 students and 2 subjects twice a week, and you're looking at $560,000. So I mean, I understand we have surplus and we have money to spare right now. However, I don't see how that's affordable. That's the only thing.
So in suggesting this platform point, one of the number one things that I thought would be brought up is the cost of it. I'm not the only candidate who's suggesting affordable academic tutoring service. Mr. Saul is also suggesting it. Except I chose, in presenting this platform point, to not actually suggest a dollar amount for what students would be paying and what tutors would be subsidized. Whereas Mr. Saul has, I would like to implement a pilot and then go from there to see what numbers we're getting in terms of projections.
Okay, Teddy.
The point, and this is, I think it's the TA in me, is I'm worried a little bit about Jacob's freedom credit, and really I want to learn more, I think is the bottom line. And so from my perspective, and we had this conversation earlier in the week, I just worry about pulling extrinsic motivation out for a student so they no longer have that grab for the grades, that might deter them from actually exploring the intrinsic rewards. And then I also am aware that at some of the other schools you've referenced, that I think it's a little bit more closed off than the way I at least read it. That when I read it for yours, I'm hearing more like you could take anything and you could do anything, whereas some of the other schools it was a specific to a program, and then it was a restricted course list. So I just want to learn more. So how you see it coming through?
Definitely. So I'll try and pack as much information as I can in this 30 seconds. But to address your question about students' performance in classes, what was found in the pilots operated at other universities who have a program similar to Freedom Credit was that students were actually succeeding in the courses that they were taking. They weren't just doing the bare minimum to pass by. And I think the reason for that is because they were generally invested in the topics that they were choosing to take as an elective. I don't have enough time to discuss more details, but hopefully I can provide more online later.
Okay.
I'd also like to talk to you, Jacob, about the freedom credit. And the main thing I'm wondering is how does that extend past faculties like science and engineering? For a lot of, if you're a social science or humanities student, and you're looking at maybe doing something in engineering, which you often bring up in your class talks and also in your SIL articles, I'm wondering how you can actually participate in terms of a freedom credit if you haven't necessarily taken the prerequisites in high school, and how does that really affect students in the humanities and social sciences?
So in order for freedom credit to work, essentially the onus is on the student to do their research in terms of what it's possible for them to actually take in terms of prerequisites. You naturally can't take a class that you don't have prerequisites for. In terms of actual implementation, it comes down to the academic policy and planning committees of each department and faculty to decide which courses are eligible, like, to exercise this option. So at certain universities, certain faculties don't even have this option available to their students. And that,
Okay. So now we're going to go into a second round. These next questions will be about topics that come up frequently in your platforms. We've selected candidates to open each discussion based on that topic's presence in their platforms, and they'll each have 1 minute to discuss how that topic relates to their platforms. All candidates will have the opportunity to then respond with one 30-second rebuttal per topic after I've gone through the 3 people that relate first. So, this first one is about academics. How does your platform address improving students in class or overall academic experience? And I have 3 people selected for this one. We'll start with Brodka.
So I just had an opportunity to talk a little bit about freedom credit. As I mentioned before, I think it's important for students to drive change in terms of the way that we're teaching and learning, and faculty is really open to that type of conversation. Something else that I'm introducing, as was discussed before, is the affordable academic tutoring. So providing students with an opportunity to learn, earn some cash on the side in the tutor's case. But another element of that affordable academic tutoring service that has not been highlighted enough, I think, is I'm interested in having a small grant type program where a student who's not actually able to afford this service, it's possible for them to apply for it to get the tutoring that they need. Obviously, there'd be limitations surrounding that due to cost, but that's how I address academics in my platform.
Okay, let's move to Teddy.
Great, thank you. Oh, academics is fun times. Let's talk about them quickly. So, peer tutoring network. I think as a TA, I've done office hours, and I think students love one-on-ones, but I also think that TAs across the board are not necessarily intro psych TAs, where it's an undergrad who loves their topic and can be intimidating. So that is kind of the niche for peer tutoring that I see. I also see it as an opportunity to create jobs, which is kind of a win-win. And you learn so much when you try to teach something. When you are the 4th year biology student revisiting your 1st year topic, I think that builds that excitement and gets things going again. So that's great. And then I also have exam upgrades. It's called pretty much, I just want to do some little things for students while they're gearing up for exams. One of those things is that we have 24-hour library service, which is fantastic during exams, but they only start on the first day of exams. And then what happens if you have an exam that day? So for me, those little improvements are easy and clear ways to help students learn.
Okay, and Jason, I thought we'd go to you.
Thank you. All right, so in terms of my point, once again, on increasing experiential education, the purpose of this one is really so that there's a wide variety of experiential options that can go with the changing demands of the professional world. We've heard in the fall, I heard many different media sources talk about engineering and how engineering students, the ones that they're still getting fantastic jobs and all the time, but the ones that are getting the best jobs are the ones who can write professional documents. So I had a bunch of students come up to me in engineering and say, hey, I don't have much room for courses. What can I do maybe to get some sort of practice? Anything in the humanities offer that doesn't take much time to work with and practice these kind of skills. So basically, getting the discussion between faculties to come together and explore the options we might have with each other, because their budgets are all different, the discussion needs to happen for it to be a success.
Okay, so now that we've had those 3 candidates open the discussion on academics, the other candidates who weren't invited to speak initially can have their 30-second rebuttal, and then any other candidates who also wanted to have a chance to jump back in will also get 30 seconds. So, Jessica?
I think that both Jacob and Teddy have, reached an excellent point about peer tutoring, and I think I'd like to bring in the concept of what I've been putting on my platform, which is that it's an open source platform. And what I mean by that is that if I'm not successful, then I would like to extend the offer to the elected president to help them on the initiatives that I'm interested in, and also, if I'm elected, then I'd like to also work with you, both of you, to make that happen if that's a possibility, because I think you brought up an excellent point.
Okay, and Isra, did you have anything to add?
No, but I would do the same thing as Jessica Russell. Yes.
Okay. So with you three who we open the discussion with, do you have anything to add? Jacob?
My question is for Mr. Saul. Obviously we both got like some sort of inspiration from the MES academic tutoring system. We're both suggesting the same thing. But something that's a little bit concerning to me is the fact that you're going ahead and suggesting or promising students like a certain subsidization model where a tutor will get 15, a student will pay 5. And it seems like Mr. Walwitz did some number crunching over there, and it seems like that's not really a sustainable model. So I was wondering if you'd be able to comment on that.
So we'll go with this question, and then like the way that we'll do it is not questions and answers. Go ahead, just this once.
So I can answer this and then I'll get my own rebuttal.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
But moving forwards, that's not how we'll do it.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, Jacob, great point about sustainability, because I want to make sure that the ideas that I'm bringing forward and that really anyone is bringing forward are things that will continue to affect generations of students and not just 1 year, not just a 1 year term. I proposed the dollar values because I thought that this was the best way to do it with the success of the MES. To be honest, we have the SLEF, and typically the proposals or submissions there are in the magnitude of $100,000, so I think that would get us a good pilot.
And Jason, did you want to add anything?
Do I get to do my
Oh,
own
sorry.
rebuttal
Yes,
thing?
you can also.
And mine is actually, oh, right, I can't ask a question. So I was just wondering if perhaps in your rebuttal you would like to comment on, because I think it's a
yeah,
great
that's,
idea.
That's fine.
That's okay?
fine.
Okay,
If
sweet.
someone's still going to be speaking. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm really excited by the prospect of experiential education, and I think that it's a beautiful part of presidential campaigns and platforms to think about big ideas. I'm just wondering how you plan to. I don't need a roadmap, but just kind of like what do you think? Where would the conversation start? Stuff like that.
All right, so to answer that question, from my own experience, I'm currently on one of 5 working groups that the Humanities has put together since August, and we've been separated with different tasks. However, our working group is essentially in charge of the experience beyond the first year, so second, third, and fourth year programming. And what we've done is have multiple discussions and meetings, and we've come up with great new ideas, such as a couple certificate programs, which are being given to the dean to check if they're a good idea. Wow, that time goes by quick. Wow.
Okay.
So can I make
Yes.
a comment? Okay. All right, so I guess my comment would be for Teddy. I was wondering how your exam upgrades would work, because how your exam upgrades would work, only because I'm aware that Union Market is already open till 11:30 p.m. and if we're going to make it an all-night service during exams, it is a service run by students, and also with the gym hours currently they have reduced hours during exams, and that's also run by students. I was just wondering if you could comment on that.
Okay, so Teddy's Teddy's
right.
already had his 30-second thing.
That's my 30 seconds of fame.
But there'll be lots more opportunities as we progress. We have lots to get through, so I'm sure you'll be able to work a response to that into the next topic. So the next thing is that students pay a lot of money every year for their education, both in tuition and ancillary fees. How does your platform ensure either that students aren't paying higher fees than they should be, or that they're getting their money's worth for the fees that they're already paying? So I thought we'd start with Isra. You have some stuff about ancillary fees?
Yes, currently, as I mentioned earlier, around, so every student pays around $250. That's a population of around 20,000 students, and that would total up to $4.5 million. About $90,000 of that actually goes to the operating costs of the building fund fee of the Athletics and Recreation Center, and it's important to kind of realize that all this money is going into one place, and how can we assess student value? If we have the majority of students not using the space, then what is the value that these students are getting even though they are paying? One manifestation of this is to actually decrease the Pulse membership cost, and other ways is to just look into other values. For example, increase yoga classes and at the same time have them also at a kind of decreased cost as well.
Okay, and Teddy, I thought we'd go to you next.
Oh, sure. Thank you. So my understanding is that the MSU is a nonprofit organization, which means at the end of the year we don't need to be cutting a profit and reinvesting to grow and such and such. And we also, again, I understand particularly from State of the Union yesterday, that we are in a large cash surplus, which means over the years we've taken a fair bit of student money, perhaps not wrongly, but just maybe we haven't looked very critically at where it's going. And so what I'm proposing is a fee cut, or a fee freeze. So the MSU collects $122 as it is, and I just want to say, you know what, we're okay where we're at. We're going to pause for a year. We're going to relook at things and look at how we spend every dollar, and we're going to go from there. And I think that this is an exciting point because the point of the freeze is to reevaluate where we stand now, but it's also very sustainable because we could run as the CFO of the MSU quoted this morning on Twitter. We could run for 47 years on a $100,000 deficit, so we're in a good spot.
Okay, and Jessica, you address emergency funds and stuff like that in your platform?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like in direct relation to your question, it's not so much about getting what we get for our money, but I think it's just about having the money. So in my platform, I really wanted to bring up how students are able to actually pay for school, and where our government and also I believe the university administration is failing us in terms of not advertising what is currently available to us to be able to access education. Currently, there's the Ontario Access Guarantee, which means that you actually have the complete right, and the university has to support you to make sure that financial issues are not going to be barring you from your education. I want to take what the university already has with its emergency loan and emergency fund services, advertise them, which the university does not have anywhere on their website aside from the undergraduate calendar, which is where you look for courses. And be able to take that and put the pressure on the university to be helping us when we need it. Because to be honest, I know I've met a lot of students that have had that need, and I personally have had that need. And I want to see that addressed by the university.
Okay, so we'll jump over to Jason since you didn't have a chance to speak.
Sure thing. Could you actually just repeat the question for me just so I answer it correctly?
So yeah, we're just talking about tuition and ancillary fees and how your platform addresses those. Are the students paying higher fees than they should be? Are they getting their money's worth for the fees that they are paying? Stuff like that.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, that is a question that has to be answered by you, the students. So I think that goes with my engaging student ideas point, which would be to introduce the Bright Idea program, which essentially is an avenue to reach out to students and find out if you guys really think that we should be changing the structure or changing fees, and if they are too expensive. The more feedback we have, the better, because I believe in making educated decisions, and I think there's no better way to make an educated decision than from MSU members, undergraduate students.
Okay. And Jacob, we didn't touch on you initially, if you want to talk.
For sure. I think I'll just talk about the tuition aspect of the question. So the MSU does have an advocacy type role on a provincial and federal level, and one of the things that we talk about through USA and CASA is the cost of tuition. So even though the tuition framework has been set, it still will be an ongoing conversation and something we should be concerned about. In terms of ancillary fees, we obviously have to be conscious about our spending and ensuring that students are getting value for what they're paying for. And there definitely are merits to reviewing our spending for our services and ancillary fees.
Okay. Were there any rebuttals from people who opened the discussion?
I'd like to just address Teddy. I think that one thing that when we're talking about money, I think we need to be very clear that there are two separate funds that we're discussing in terms of surplus and then also the reserves that we have. So we currently do have a $4.7 million reserve, which is where the 47 years that you're referring comes to. But a surplus is a fair bit different in terms of that's the surplus that we're getting on a yearly basis. And the reson why it's more difficult to account for that is because we have services such as 1280 and Union Market that are bringing in those funds and helping us run on a regular basis. So just to clarify that.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that. That's something that I learned about this week. I knew that we had X amount of dollars, like 4 million, 4 point what. And as a psychology student, I'm not overly, what would the word be, proficient with the use of cash reserve versus surplus. Bottom line for me is that we have student money waiting to be evaluated for how we can move forward and make sure it's impacting students. So thank you.
And Isra?
No current rebuttals, but yeah.
Okay. So at this point, I would just like to remind our viewers, if you're just jumping in now, sorry that we had a bit of a late start. Hopefully the feed is okay. If you want to interact on Twitter, use the hashtag MSUPres14. And to suggest a question for our candidates, comment on the live stream feed, and we will ask a selection of viewer questions at the end of the debate. just wanted to interject with that. So to return to the debate, another panel question here. How will you build a better, stronger community of students here on campus? I thought we'd start with Mr. Wolowitz. You have an end-of-year celebration platform point.
Sure thing, absolutely. Back in December, I sat down with Aligo from Campus Events, and we discussed, what can let's add another fun aspect to our year, and what is possible, what can we do? So, and we came up with a end of the year celebration. I call it a celebration because it could be a concert, it could be an event of sorts, a day. It like to open it up to the students, really. The options. There are many options, and I just think we don't have anything at the end of second term to de-stress right before final exams. We have the room, we have the partners that want to do the programming, so let's do the programming. Let's add something fun.
Okay. Jessica, I thought we could move to you. You have a welcome week for introverts plan.
Absolutely. So, along with the lines of my platform in general is inclusivity, accessibility, and equity. And I think that sort of opening up, making sure that we're addressing other issues in Welcome Week, and I'm sure, Teddy can attest to this with his experience in Welcome Week. And I have actually been a Welcome Week planner in 2010, which I know is maybe a long time back for some other people. But my experience is that we need to make sure that we're addressing other issues of, one, energy. I think that fatigue during Welcome Week is very is not even just for introverts, but also for extroverts like myself. And we need to be making sure that we have places where we can also make a lot of meaningful contact. Welcome Week is excellent for meeting a lot of people, but it's also, we need to take those time to also make those meaningful connections, even if it's just with a few, because that's what's going to be helping us make those lasting connections that hopefully will last from your first year to your last.
And Isra, I thought we could go to you. You have a spirituality center platform point.
Yes, the Spirituality Center is something that has been a conversation started ever since 2004, and it's been needed by a lot of different faith groups on campus, and even for those without faith. And so having that platform or that avenue for students just to sit and discuss and have that, library or anything that would actually allow students to feel more enhanced into their spirituality on campus, I feel that is definitely feasible given the different space. I've kind of developed a space reallocation strategy, which I can discuss further in another platform point, but in terms of the space itself, I feel that it's highly needed and something that we can definitely pursue and push the university to have on campus.
So Teddy and Jacob, I didn't call on you, so if you want to begin with a rebuttal or share your platform points.
Okay, I'll go. Do you mind if I go first?
Go for it.
Okay, so I'm going to go super speedy because my entire platform was designed with community in mind. Bottom line for community to me is that things have to be easy for students and they have to be things that students actually want. And so one of my points is Clubza, which is just meant to draw people in and make it very easy. I did have a quick comment, although I don't think I'm going to have time, for Jess. And that is just, I think that you bring a very perfect point about needing to create programming opportunities for students with different personalities, and I think that ultimately is what that falls onto the role of residents and SOCs, and that's what we really tried to do this year. For example, all of my the ROAs that I worked with as the orientation planner, so those are like the building leaders, they would build programs in mind with flexing with what else is going on campus. So for example, if there was a concert happening, then we would try to have a cute, cozy coffee house night that evening, stuff like that. So I think that we're okay for now. Or okay, well, thank you. Yeah.
And Jacob?
So to me, events and programming is just one very small aspect of community. I've said time and time again that my reason for even coming to this university was the sense of community I experienced immediately when I stepped on campus. And that sense of community extends beyond just our campus grounds. And that's something I'm trying to address with my Good Neighbor campaign. Community relations are something that's extremely important. I think that it's important that we highlight the successes and good work that our non-resident and resident students have in the neighborhood surrounding McMaster.
Okay. So we can go back to Jason. I called on you first if you wanted to jump back in.
Sure. I would just first of all completely agree with Jessica Russell about her point on contact during Welcome Week. Having been a 3-time residence orientation representative, I completely agree that contact is absolutely necessary, and I've seen over the last few years the wonderful things that can come from that. Also, I'd like to just address Isra's faith space, which I attempted to try and help her, or at least wonder where the ideas were going when she brought it up to executive board before. Although I would like to know her space allocation strategy, because there's no space.
Okay, and we can maybe go to Jess now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would sort of speak, to Teddy. I mean, I agree that in terms of Welcome Week in Res, that is definitely a thing that I experience in Res. However, I think that when we look at our larger things that specifically the MSU works on, such as air bands or other large events that we have, some things that IRC does, I'd like to have just sort of, my basis for it was sort of having a lounge or having larger events that did facilitate communication, a place where you can grab coffee, de-stress through a very stressful week and have time to just have a nice chat with some people.
Okay, and Isra?
Sure. Thank you, Jason, for the question. So currently we have groups within a year or so that will be transferring into the Wilson building and also the student lounge at 88 Forsyth across from the Student Center. So we need to understand where exactly or what space exactly is going to be, what is that space going to be used for? And from there, actually go forward in terms of determining what that space is going to be used for. And also, a new building will be happening soon. It's currently in the budgeting process at the residence near T20A and T29. So,
Gotta cut you off there.
okay.
This may come up again in this question, which we've already hinted towards, but some of your platform points directly address this. So, what would you do to make McMaster a more inclusive campus? Jacob, you have an idea forum concept. I thought we'd start with you.
Yep, so the idea forum concept is very much supposed to be about the concept of students driving change on campus. So in terms of inclusivity, it's definitely important to bring a variety of perspectives to the table in terms of things and projects that the MSU as an organization and even university should be working on. Currently, right now, the MSU has a variety of social media channels, and every once in a while there are times where it's possible for students to engage in conversation and suggest types of projects. But the online idea forum is very much meant to be an engaging way for students to suggest ideas and projects that they'd like to see on campus, see their ideas gain traction, and interact online with it would be the board or the assembly, and seeing if things are in consideration, possible, feasible, or completed.
Okay. Isra, I thought we could jump over to you. You have a food ingredients platform point.
Yes, I've been having a lot of conversations in that regard with different groups on campus, and it seems to be such a high need to have food ingredients labeled across the different eating places on campus, because currently we have dietary and cultural and religious and just health restrictions. So I feel it's important that we kind of do consider that and accommodate those needs. I've had conversations with Bill McFadden, who's the Hospitality Services Director in this regard, and this is something definitely feasible. He's done it at other universities, and this is something that can be successfully established here at MAC as well.
Okay, and Jessica, I thought we could jump over to you. You have an Inclusion Council platform point.
Yeah, so I think that, we do a pretty good job in terms of the Student Representative Assembly in terms of talking about faculty representation. But I think that we need more thoughts. Sorry, that's a little distracting. I think we need more talking about that we're more than just our faculty, and I think that needs to be addressed further in a more centralized way in the MSU. Currently, we have diversity services in the Queer Students Community Center, which I have a feeling that Isra and I are a little familiar with. But I feel like we need to have that centralized so that the president of our organization can have a clear perspective on inclusion at the university, as well as talking about long-term issues that affect students from a variety of histories, from cultural experiences, faith experiences, being queer, trans, MAD students, students with disabilities, low-income students, international students. I can keep going on, but we need to be focusing and recognizing that we're not doing an adequate job of representing students in all potential ways.
Okay, and so the two people at the end there that I didn't call on first, you each have 30 seconds to jump in. We can start with Teddy this time.
Sure. Inclusivity, I think, is has been something that I've taken in through years of working in residence and working with students, where it's just, to me, I feel like it's second nature now. And so something that I really like that the MSU has been addressing this year has been trying to think of proactive ways to look at things like ethical purchasing. That's something that Isra, somebody on your team was talking to me this week about, which was really cool. And so, well, I'm out of time. So yeah, thank you.
All right, so very quickly, I guess. Yeah, I mean, the MSU currently is doing some things very well. With that said, I do believe that we could be doing things better. I'm very excited to see how the new sorry, correct me if I'm what's the
Women and Gender Equity Center.
Thank you. The Women and Gender Equity Center. I'm very excited to see how that goes, and I think Jess has done a fantastic job with her service as well. So I think we are doing things quite well, but I'd like to open it up and to student ideas, just to get their ideas, because we could be doing better.
Okay, and the candidates that I did open up the floor with, if you want to go along the line.
I was the first one, or sorry, which one?
We can start with you and just...
Okay, I
Yeah.
figured it was the three of us, so just clarifying. So one thing I want to, and I know this is, I can't really ask a question, but I just want to bring up the point that the idea forum, and as well, Jason has a similar idea in terms of his big idea project. There was 2 years ago in Siobhan Stewart's campaign a platform point called The Hub, which was very similar to get student ideas and student feedback, and there were reasons why that didn't happen. I feel like it's really interesting that point came up, and I personally don't see that there has been any follow-up with Siobhan Stewart specifically on that issue.
Jacob, we can go to you.
Just to respond to that, I think the reason why that initial online idea form failed was because the interaction online was very one way and one track. It wasn't what I'm proposing is a type of system that's been employed at other universities where students can actually see their ideas gain traction, and it's possible for the administrators, who is the assembly and board, to actually comment and show progress, and students are able to actually engage in conversation. There is a difference between the two ideas.
And Isra, do you have anything to add?
I also highly value equity and inclusiveness on campus. I think that goes part of my creating spaces for equity, and I would be very passionate to actually turn the part-time MSU Diversity Service Director back to full-time as it was 3 years ago, simply because there's a lot of issues that it needs to tackle. Just 3 years ago, or about 2 years ago, when, for example, the VP Education, Huzaifa Saeed, when he pursued a lot of mental health campaigns, this year there wasn't a lot of prioritization on that, and simply because these issues need to be housed within a specific position, and I believe that returning it back to how it was will definitely serve the purpose.
Okay. So now this next question, I think, kind of stems off of that. How will your platform make improvements to the MSU's governance and administration? This is an aspect of the job that many students don't see on a daily basis, but is a major role of what the MSU president does. So let's start with Jessica. You have suggestions for an HR and tax consultant for the MSU.
Thank you for bringing that up. I think in terms of the HR rep, that really comes from my experience through working for the MSU for 2 years as a part-time manager and actually managing students and also working with the MSU in a very clear way. I believe that currently we have like 300 student employees, not to mention around 1,000 volunteers. And if there's an issue, and what my greater concern, not to mention just the minute things in supporting the VP admin, I think we need to be looking at if there are issues of discrimination or sexual assault, where can you go in the organization currently to have that addressed? Where can you go to actually make sure that your needs as a student are being addressed, specifically in your student union. And there's a lot of conflicts of interest. And I mean, the fact that, all the presidential candidates, we do know each other very well. I mean, that just shows like how much interaction the MSU sees on a regular basis. So we need to have more clarification on human resources issues.
Okay, and Jacob and Teddy, your budgeting strategy kind of addresses MSU governance in this way, so I thought we could go to both of you. Let's start with Teddy.
Sure. I think, as I mentioned when I usually describe this, is that the point about freezing the fee is about principle rather than the actual dollars and cents, and it's about the fact it's a commitment to students that we're gonna look very critically at the way we're spending money, and we have something that we think can last for a very long time. And so in that way, I think I'm excited to sit down with a VP Finance and our financial consultants in the summer to look at where might we be able to do better. And then, yeah, you know what? I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and Jacob?
So, like you mentioned, governance, the participatory project models that I'm proposing, the two tiers with the student center and then just general projects and initiatives for SLEF, isn't necessarily about governance. It's more so just about getting students engaged and contributing ideas to existing pools of money that are already there for capital upgrades and projects on campus. So it's not necessarily about governance, but just getting students to participate in the decision-making process from start to finish, because it is student money.
Okay. And let's go down the line. This is your 30 seconds.
Sure. I'd just like to say I do very much like the idea that Mr. Braca and Teddy Saul have brought to the table for participatory budgeting. Sorry. I'm very, very interested. You guys have some pretty good points on them. I'm very interested in hearing more, so hopefully we get a little more detail throughout the rest of this debate, but I think it's a good idea. I'd just like to share that. Or a bright idea, rather.
You crafty squirrel, you.
And Isra?
I think also a part of my platform part regarding equity and the governance part of it. I guess modifying the operating policy for the position as well, where they become more involved in the SRA level, where it would be like critical for them to attend and actually vocalize their opinions further, because currently this is not happening.
Okay, Teddy?
Well, I think I'll speak to what impact I would have on the SRA, having not sat on the SRA before. I think I've spent my time at McMaster on the ground with students. So as a CA, as a TA, planning Welcome Week for, for 3,600 incoming students and this and that. And I think that will allow me to be sitting in that seat and to always be thinking, how does this come back to the student population? And what would students who wouldn't come to an SRA meeting, what would they think about these conversations, and what would they hope would come out of it? So that's an addition that I would bring to the government system we have.
Jacob?
Immediately when you think governance, you think of the governing bodies of the MSU. So we have the Student Representative Assembly, which consists of a variety of caucuses, and our Board of Directors. Something that I think is important is like continuity from year to year, and that comes from actual involvement in the organization. There are a lot of projects and policies and bylaws and services that are being worked on in the back end that students don't necessarily see, but it would make sense for a president to be aware of these projects in order to ensure continuity from year to year.
And Jess, we'll end with you.
Yeah, I just want to also take the time to sort of address how the Inclusion Council would also be related to governance. So like I was saying before, the SRA deals with, the sort of partially, minutia of the MSU, which is, operations and procedures, et cetera, which is really valuable. At the same time, I think that the Inclusion Council will make it more accessible for students talking about larger issues and talking about issues that do affect them on a day-to-day basis. And it can also make recommendations to the SRA, and I'm hoping to have some collaboration between those two projects when I'm able to implement them.
Okay, and for our last panel topic, how will you improve student life? Jason, I thought we could start with you.
All right, then. Well, I've got a couple of points on that, so I'm going to jump with ensuring a variety of study environments. So essentially, since it's very difficult to find any space on campus at this point in time, so this is basically ensuring that the space that we have is set up for students for all their work needs. So that's ensuring that there's enough quiet space, that there's enough group study space. There are faculties and courses that do require roundtable discussion. So making sure that in certain areas of campus we are meeting the needs of students, and that goes all the way down to providing media options such as maybe a few more smart boards if necessary, as well as projectors to practice presentations, and also all the way down to outlets, because I was studying in Thode in December in the basement, and I had a room with a bunch of students, and when my laptop just died halfway through, there's no outlet. So it's just making sure that we're using the study space to the best of our abilities.
Okay. Teddy, I thought we could go over to you. You have points about off-campus safety, among other things.
Sure. Could you repeat the question?
Improving student life.
Improving student life. Okay, well, I think ultimately everything here on my platform is an attempt to do so. And so I'm actually going to jump to participatory budgeting because I think it's the most exciting. What I would do, one of the suggestions that I would put in if I was a student, I would want a huge screen TV. I would put it in Musk, and we would watch Leaf games, and we would have Harry Potter marathons on the weekends, and it would be a great time. And so the excitement here is not that that is ever going to happen. Like, I don't get to necessarily choose. It'll be up to the students. But I think that in and of itself, on both Jacob and my platforms, is exciting because it brings people together to get pumped up about voting, to get excited about some sort of idea that can bring people together on campus. And that's amazing. And that's what it's all about. It's just putting things at ground level for students to experience. So thank you for your question.
Okay, and Isra, I thought we'd go over to you.
Absolutely. So I think enhancing student life is a priority that should be put in the front lines despite some of the challenges that do come up. For example, modifying the food catering rules at Bridges Cafe, which does impact a lot of student clubs here at McMaster, and also exams welcome day. So near the end of March, exams are coming and there's a lot of stress in the air. So I think one opportunity is to engage students in kind of a networking break between students, faculty, and just the MSU in general through an outdoor fun experience. So, I mean, overall, encompassing, I think my platform point does have student life enhancement at the top of its prioritization list.
Okay. Jacob, we can jump into you now for your 30-second edition.
For sure. So the MSU improves student life through its services and programming. And outside of that, the only way that we can help improve student life is to identify problems. And that's not possible for one person to do, which is where the online idea form stems from, and which is where the participatory project budget model stems from. I want students to submit their concepts and ideas and projects and upgrades and capital investments. I want them to share with us how we can improve campus. And if their ideas can gain traction and they can show there's demand for it, then I think that'd be a great way to improve student life.
Okay, and over to you, Jess.
Yeah, thanks, Gemma. I think the big thing that I was trying to focus on when developing my platform, and I am still trying to focus on, is what do students need? And I think that it's great to think of great, and I think we've seen some great ideas around the table about potential ideas and, getting student feedback. But I think there are a lot of things that students still need. And I think we should be looking at what students need before, looking at simply, the wish list, so to speak. And so to keep in mind things like the emergency fund, inclusion council, and also CNA mental health services are, I think, things that students need.
Okay, so let's go down the table again. Jason, do you have anything to jump in? Did I already do you? Sorry.
I honestly am where did this question
Yes.
come from?
We're done. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right, okay. My apologies.
That's all right.
So, sorry, to close the debate, we would like to ask a few questions from our live stream audience. Do we have some?
Yeah.
Sure. Are they general for the whole group?
Yes.
Okay. So this is Angie Shen, our online editor. She was monitoring what was happening on the web, and she has some questions to ask the audience. So we'll do one first.
Right. So this is something that's been very popular on the Twitter stream, and people want to know what you think of the red suits getting suspended. So I'll just read the statement, part of the statement that the university gave out today. They said that effective immediately, the red suits will not be allowed to run or participate in any events on campus, and the student group will not be permitted to participate in the organization of this year's Welcome Week activities. So this is something that a lot of students want to know about. What are your thoughts on the red suits being suspended?
So we can do reverse alphabetical order for this one, and 30 seconds.
All right. Well, I figured this would be a big question for tonight. Clearly, I think most of campus should agree that having looked at the document, it's absolutely inappropriate. It's just absolutely unacceptable. With that said, having been a Welcome Week representative as well, I think we should have a little more discussion before condemning all engineering students who might be reps as well. For as far as I'm aware, the songbook, as it's being called, did not involve all students. So I'd like to get a little discussion going with maybe the Engineer Society as well as the MSU and university partners. However, with that said, I think we should it's a very unfortunate circumstance, and it puts us in a very difficult spot. And it's just, I do not support those actions whatsoever, but we should have more discussion on condemning all engineers.
I would say that I am in favor of the stance that the MSU put forth this afternoon, or maybe this evening, and that is in support of the university administration. But with that said, I think the role of the MSU is to bridge the gap between these two groups right now. So the MES is a phenomenal group of students who I have the pleasure of knowing on a personal basis, a few of them through attending some of their meetings. And I think it's what we should be focused on as the MSU is how do we support the engineering society now and moving forward from this so that there's growth and learning. At the end of the day, this is a university, this is an educational institution, and I don't need to say, but I will, I don't need to say that the contents of the songbook are obviously completely against everything that we hope to represent and all of the work that all the ground we've covered with inclusivity. But with that said, I think everything should be taken as a how do we move forward and how do we support the learning here. Oh, right, sorry. I'm sorry, Jess.
You should be sorry for being very nice to giving me a microphone. I think I'm just really saddened. I think the content was really, now that I had a chance to look at it, unfortunately, it was hurtful, and I think it was really triggering. Another sad part is, in my experience as Queer Students Community Center Coordinator, the MES has been nothing but respectful about inclusivity, even like going so far as to contact us, making sure it's okay that they do an Eng Goes to a Gay Bar event. And even though it was queer students organizing it, they want to make sure that things are okay for us, and that they also made a point to discuss with FAM and the past chair of the Women and Gender Equity Center Committee last year to make sure that they had their chairs were inclusive and that they could work together to make sure that during Frosh Week they were being inclusive and especially towards women. So they have made those efforts. I can't support what's in that book though, but I think the whole situation is just really unfortunate.
So, given the current information, I stand by the university's suspension decision. I'm curious to see the types of conversations that will take place moving forward to ensure that engineering students who are paying service fees for programming do receive the programming that they are paying for. And again, what's tough is that when things go wrong, it often blows up, and that's what you turn your focus to. It's just extremely important that we don't forget the good work that faculties do and the hard work that reps and faculties are putting into the school and giving to their students and providing to their students. When things go bad, it's easy for these things to be emphasized, but I stand by the university's decision, and I'm curious to see the conversations that take place moving forward.
I don't think all engineers were condemned in this, but rather the act itself. And I'm very much satisfied actually with the stand that the university has taken, and I think all students should be highly valued, and no disrespect should take place whatsoever. But the stand that the university had taken today was very much appreciated, given the certain circumstances.
Okay. Do we have another question from our live stream audience?
Okay, so this one comes from Josh Patel on Twitter. He's asking another timely question, given the purchase of 88 Forsyth. So he asks, how do the candidates aim to improve current relations between the community and students?
So let's go in reverse alphabetical order this time. So Isra, that means, sorry, in alphabetical order.
Just regular alphabet.
And we'll just do 30 seconds for this one.
I guess it's not so much regarding 88 Forsyth specifically, but rather how to increase engagement with the community. One of my platform points is actually the Get Out to Vote campaign, and this is regarding the upcoming municipal elections in 2014, October. So I think that by encouraging students to have a more stronger voice in terms of what happens in Hamilton, this is very significant it's very significant in the overall implementation of different projects across the city, and I think that we students should have a stronger stand in what happens around here.
Okay.
So the pushback from community members for 88 Forsyth very much stemmed from the university's desire for rezoning. Community relations and the stigma of student neighborhoods is something that's, I guess, alive and well. So how I hope to address this in my platform is through the Good Neighbor campaign. Though it's something very small, I think it's important that we highlight the successes and good work that students are doing in our neighborhoods. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
First, I'd like to thank Josh, who is one of our excellent part-time managers at the Student Community Support Network. I think that community relations is obviously a huge part, and I think it's also a huge part of what the MSU does and focuses on through both like our VPs and then also in our president and also through the Student Community Support Network. I feel like I personally do. In terms of 88 Forsyth, I think we can also look at other universities who have had similar initiatives off campus, such as U of O. But I think we can also have a little more talk on it.
I'm going to comment on the actual use of the property, 88 Forsyth, after attending the community meeting there and seeing the pushback from the community members. And so my stance on that, on the use of that space, is that it would be best used as university administration offices, and then we can refocus the way we're allocating space on campus for student lounges and other things. So just to respond directly to what Josh might have had in mind, I'm not sure.
Yes, I'm excited to see the SCSN and SOX in one location. I think SOX has some fantastic programming for their own individuals, and I've also seen SOX do some interesting work in the community as well. I think having both of those, both the SCSN and SOX together, I think that opens up a lot of avenues for some interesting new programming. Most SOX members that I've met are very interested in helping out the community as they are a part of it, living in it as well. So I'd like to see what they can do.
Okay, and Angie, one more question from our live stream audience.
Yes, so this is a question from David Campbell. He's asking, what do you think is the most important provincial issue confronting MAC and USA?
Okay, so let's start with Jess this time, and we'll go down this line and then back to Jason.
I'm going to say, just based on my own experience, is just increasing debt loads. And I also would kind of go into that in sort of the new Ontario offering of if you participate in the Pan Am Games, will give you extra time off. I think this is just really disrespectful of students' time and students' contributions and also student finances. I think that we need to be talking more about debt load. I think we need to be talking more about how we're actually paying it. I think we also need to be talking a little bit more about how the Ontario government values our time and efforts into our finances.
So I feel like provincial and federal issues are things that are often like complex or just not necessarily received by students. So I think advocacy does a fantastic job at highlighting and presenting these issues or things that we're tackling at a provincial level to students and presents it in an attractive way. To comment on something that's currently on the table, it's this university's strategic mandate agreement and differentiation and how that will affect post-secondary institutions in Ontario.
Okay.
I think the 30% tuition progress has been, the progress at this 30% tuition, I guess, cutoff line. I think I was really interested to kind of see the progress of that this year. That's about it for provincial.
All right. I'm very satisfied with what USA has done within the last year in terms of the 3% tuition, the freeze on the 3% tuition rise every year. I think that's good progress and that's a good start. I mean, USA has done some fantastic work in the last year. I've gone through most of their briefs from the last year. And I'd like to see, I just think we can do a little bit better. Let's just keep on the good trend that we're on with them, in terms of advocacy.
I'm going to do my very best to answer this in 30 seconds. Hands down, differentiation. I agree with Jacob. The differentiation, the concept here is that we have to say what is different about us than other universities, what we do better, which is a very difficult thing when you're at a world-class institution that does almost everything very well. And so one of those things is how do we balance good teaching, which is sometimes measured by teaching track faculty, with the number of research faculty that we have, because we're a cutting-edge institution. So I think we are caught between a rock and a hard place, and I'm excited to see how that works out. Thanks for the time.
Okay. So that's it for our questions. It's now time for closing statements. For this portion, you can have up to 1 minute to perhaps discuss one point in your platform that you don't think has received enough discussion in this debate. and to perhaps identify one point from another candidate that you would like to adopt if you are elected. There'll be no rebuttals in this round. We'll just go in alphabetical order and conclude it after that. So Israel, let's start with you.
I'd like to sincerely thank the Silhouette and everybody here, and also the students for listening and engaging with us tonight. I think I would really like to adopt the exam upgrades that Teddy Saul is referring to. I think students do need more time and that energy boost during exams, so I would definitely think that this is something really, really nice to pursue. Other than that, I think my platform points do discuss a whole array of different issues on campus, but my main focus is to create spaces for everyone's voices, not only to be heard, but also recognized. So this is something I've been very sincerely passionate for, and I hope that it gets accomplished. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So just to clarify, Gemma, we're doing we can just highlight someone else's point that we'd like to adopt, or one that hasn't received attention. This isn't our closing.
This is your
This
closing.
is the closing.
Yeah,
Okay,
those are just
perfectly.
things that you might want to
Yep,
touch
for
on
sure,
as
for
you
sure.
wrap up.
So I will quickly commend Jessica for her text-based peer support platform point. I think if we can make that type of conversation and dialogue accessible to students, that is a win-win. So that is definitely something I would like to adopt onto my platform, and like to see the peer support line even adopt, or see how we can incorporate into other services. In terms of a closing, I'm just going to really comment on the nature of this debate and the nature of conversation, because that's really the essence and principle of my campaign and platform. It's about bringing people together to talk about issues, bringing people together to talk about change, because it's conversation, in my opinion, that drives positive change.
Okay, Jessica?
I'd like to thank the Silhouette. I'd like to thank everyone, not everyone, you all matter. All of you who are listening and watching. And I'd like to touch, just briefly on, I think both Jacob and Teddy have really brought up an interesting point of participatory budgeting. And I think it's a really clear forum to look into student responses. And I want to just bring back, let's talk about what students need. Let's talk about things, that students not only want but need. And I'd like to encourage students to please take a further look at my platform. Please visit my website, jess.ca, JYSS.ca, for more information, especially on things that I believe really matter, such as, the emergency fund, same-day mental health services, and, a variety of other things. I thank you for your time, and thank the other candidates for their excellent questions.
So thanks for watching, everybody. I just want to remind you that my name is Teddy when you're on the ballot. So that's me. Anyways, something that I feel like that was a shameless plug for myself. Anyways, 'tis the nature with campaigns. I also want to ditto dango what Jacob said about Jess's point. I tweeted about that earlier. I think it's such a great and such a simple addition that just will make things so accessible. So thank you for bringing that to the table. Altogether, I would say that this campaign experience has been a very interesting one for me. I think it's been brought to the table in many forums that I don't have a lot of experience in this government world. I would very much consider myself a bit of a science nerd and maybe a residence mouse. And so it's been a slice, and it's been interesting, and it's been a lot to learn. So thanks for what has been coming at me. And I'm looking forward to the next few days. So thanks very much. Teddy Saul.
All right, I'd just like to, I'll go quickly with, I'd like to address, Teddy, once again, your clubs up point. I think it's a fantastic idea. I think we have a great group of clubs on campus that cater to diverse needs of students, and I think letting students know what's available as soon as possible and in an easy way, I think that's a fantastic idea. Moving on, I would have liked some candidates to actually question me on my Bright Ideas program a little bit more, as I prepared for that a lot, so I would have really liked to have talked about it more. Hopefully we have an opportunity to do so again. Lastly, I'd just like to remind students that really what I'm trying to go for here is inspiring innovation within the MAC community and creating an equitable environment in the process. We have to have faith in students that you guys have great ideas. So just remember, you're not just a number. We want to hear from you. Thank you to the Silhouette. My platform, I think, is the most realistic. I'd like to hear your comments throughout the week.
Okay, so that wraps it up. Thank you for watching the MSU Presidential All Candidates Debate, hosted by the Silhouette, McMaster University's student newspaper. I'd like to say a special thank you to Mr. Joey Coleman for assisting with live streaming. He's been so helpful. If you're watching the live stream, you can continue to access the video on our website, thesil.ca. We'll upload it afterwards, and you'll see the candidates next Monday afternoon for a debate in the Student Center, where they can rehash things, get a chance to say what they didn't get to say, and do it live in front of you in the Student Center. So thank you to everyone for being here, and see you around.
Thank you.
You're good?
We're clear.
Record again?
Did we catch that, guys?
Now it's time
Turn
for
it
the
off,
after show.
and then pop the card.